guys, I am back. So to start my story off, I will go over how I found out I had HIV. So it all started when I was 8 years old. My mom got pregnant and I was super excited to finally have a little sibling. I was the youngest of three and I was just so happy to finally get a little sister. So I would go to all my mom's doctor's appointments with her, and I was just there for every step of the way. I loved it. And I remember, looking back at things, one of those doctor's appointments, the doctor was talking to my mom, and I wasn't really sure what he was saying, but my mom just started crying, bawling right in the middle of the doctor's office, and I didn't know why. My mom barely ever cried, or at the time, in her younger life, she barely ever showed emotion. So this moment always stuck out to me because it was just really weird why my mom was crying in the doctor's office when it was supposed to be a really good time for the whole family. So that's when my mom found out. Shortly after that, all of her kids got tested, and I was the one out of the four who had HIV. So I was 8 years old when I found out. I started taking 15 pills a day at 8 years old. 5 pills in the morning, 7 in the afternoon, and 3 at night. Now, if you have a kid, can you imagine feeding your 8-year-old kid 15 pills a day? Can you imagine? Crazy. So yeah, that was pretty much my childhood. My mother, she never really even told me that I had HIV. The way that I found out was I busted my head open. I think it was this time when I busted my head open. We went to the hospital and she told the nurses. And at the time, I still didn't really even know what it was. I was younger. I don't even think I was a teen yet. I was like probably 10 or 11. So she told the nurses, and that's the first time I heard about it. But I didn't really understand anything about it. She never had a conversation with me until then, or even after then. The one time she finally told me, or she tried to come out and tell me, I was a little bit older and we were fighting that day. I can't remember what we were fighting about, but I think she was probably arguing with some other adult and they were making her feel bad about my status. And it was probably the other adults in her life that told her not to tell me. But she asked, that day she was really upset, she asked me, "Do you know what you have?" And I said, "Yes, I have HIV." And that was the only conversation we ever really had about it. Never had the sex talk, never had any type of guidance of any kind. And all the conversations had about HIV, they were had behind my back. Everyone loved talking about it, discussing it, giving out what ifs and but thens and whatever else. Nobody ever talked to me about it to my face. Nobody ever tried to talk to me, to just even talk to me about the HIV or try to help me understand what it's like talking to someone else about it, especially like a romantic partner. All my friends knew, and so that was pretty much how I came into having HIV. I had to learn everything on my own. I had to go through hard shit on my own just to figure out how serious it was. In my early teens and early college years, I was still having unprotected sex, and it didn't hit me how serious it was until I had a kid, and I realized that I could go to prison for having sex with HIV, and if I transmit it, I could go to prison, and then my daughter is left without a mother, and I've always been a single mother, so she has no father either. So that's when I became more comfortable talking to people about it. I had to. I didn't really have any other choice. When I had my daughter, I pretty much had an ego death. You know, I couldn't be too proud for a certain job. I couldn't be too proud to ride the bus. I had to do whatever I had to do to make sure that little girl was okay. So that's really when I started opening up and telling people, was when my daughter was about a year old. That's when I started trying to see people again, and it was really awkward. It's awkward, especially in the beginning. Now I don't really care what people think, especially because undetected means untransmittable, but in the earlier days when that wasn't the case, I felt like it was hard to date someone, to get to know someone, to learn about them and see if they're worthy of that information, if they can be responsible with that information about my health status. So in order to tell someone, I'd want to take time and get to know them, but most people are just always trying to rush right into sex, and it's so annoying. Like I can't get anything done when we're rushing into sex, you know. I need to talk to people about things. I need to see who you are. I need to see if you are even worthy of holding such big information about me. So I like to know someone for at least a year before I start sleeping with them, and that's just because I like to know how they act when they're angry, when they're mad, when they're happy, when they're sad, or when they have money, or when they don't. I like to know just pretty much how they're going to handle every situation in life, to know if they're even capable of dealing with that deep of information about me. So that's how things started off in my early dating life. I'll go into more details in some instances, but that's just to kind of start things off, get you an idea of how I contracted it. I was born with it, and I got it from my mother. I'll go more into my relationship with my mother later, as well as some of the earlier situationships I've had. So thanks for coming back and watching. I hope you guys have a great day. See you tomorrow.